I'm happy to have Brian Anderson. He is the chairman and CEO of Gym Launch. So Brian today is going to go over the playbook of scaling companies to multiple millions in revenue. He's done it again and again. My first question, I just asking you off camera is, are the Hormozis still involved in the business?
They are. Yep. They're involved day to day, but they still own 1/3 of it. So they're shareholders. They're on the board of directors, and it's still very near and dear to their heart. So they're pretty involved.
And so you've been brought in to do what you do best and just scale this thing to new heights.
Yeah, that's the game plan. I often get hired by investors or private equity groups to come into an existing company and either turn it around or grab it at a certain level and try to get it to the next level. Because most investors who buy lower middle market companies want to hold it for 5 or 6 years and then sell it off. So that's what I've done a few times, is come in and just figure out how to get a company on the right trajectory and grow it as much as possible and then get it sold off.
So is that the strategy here with Gym Launch? You came in, it already established a pretty nice level of revenue and you're pushing to the next round now?
Yeah, exactly. Alex and Layla started the business 10 years ago, grew it really strongly and kind of famously. They've done a great job sort of marketing what they did at Gym Launch. In 2021, they sold it to a private equity group in California and sort of installed a new CEO who did a nice job for a few years. But the business had kind of stagnated over the last couple of years, and that private equity group, like most, want to usually hold for 4 to 7 years, somewhere in that range, and then get it sold off. So their hold time is now, 4+ years. So, they brought me in and, some additional resources to get the company on a strong growth trajectory before going to sell it.
Are you able to share some of the numbers of where it's at, where you're trying to position it?
We exceed 20 million, and we think we can probably get the business to 30 or 40 million in a couple of years. And part of this is, it's about revenue growth, but part of what we're doing at Gym Launch right now is changing the business strategically to yield higher valuation multiples. Usually when this business is about coaching and advertising. So, when Alex built it up, or similar companies might sell for 8 times earnings or 10 times earnings, but technology and SaaS businesses, subscription businesses, tend to sell for much higher multiples. So we're infusing a very strong tech play into the business model, so that when a gym comes to us for us to help them grow, we give them an opportunity to get onto our gym management software platform. And the more we can build that business and stack customer count on our gym management software, the higher our valuation multiples will be. So we're growing revenue, but at the same time, we're shifting the strategy to yield higher multiples down the road.
Is there a very set playbook of top 5 or top 10 things you always do when you come into these situations?
Chad, that's probably the best question you could ask me. I'm not a read the books, follow other people kind of guy. There are a lot of smart people out there who have done it. But one thing that I grew to understand or believe a long time ago is that there are many ways to achieve the same result. And a lot of it comes down to style. Like how I do things can be totally different than 5 other people, but we could all achieve similar results. So what's important to me as a leader, and it should be to all leaders, is to do it your way, to figure out sort of what feels right to you as a leader and make sure that you sort of follow those principles. And I can tell you mine personally, I make it all about people. I always make it all about people, because you can have the best ideas, the best products, the best everything, but a company is driven by smart, motivated people who all, have a common goal. And so over the years, I have sort of honed in on business and leadership philosophies that really make it about employees and about the team. So, it's a leader's very important job of the leader is to make sure that there's a clear vision and a clear strategy. And that strategy needs to be smart, right? The core product, the core fundamentals of the business need to be valid, or you can't realistically build a company. But once all that's kind of locked and loaded, it is all about people. You want to attract the smartest, best people, create an awesome culture where people collaborate and work well together. I'm a big proponent and fan of compensating people really well, which doesn't just mean fat salaries, but it often means spreading equity as widely as possible, or creating bonus or commission or upside structures that tie people to exactly what you want them to do from a performance standpoint. But, so there are many, many elements to the people side of the business. But when I come into a company, one of the first things I do is get to know people. I tell my direct reports, who are usually a C-level team, I say, I'm going to be reaching out far and wide through the organization and setting up one-on-one meetings. Don't be threatened by it. Don't worry about what it's about. It is a way that I learn a company, but it's also a way that I get to know people. So sometimes I'm setting up one-on-one meetings for people who report 4 levels below me, but they're on the front lines and I want to learn from them. So I spend a couple of months setting up tons of one-on-one meetings, just getting to know loads of people. And I learn a lot about the company strategy. I learn what's working, what's not working, and people talk like if they're comfortable with you. So you learn who's good and who's not, and who's well-liked and who's not. So that's something I do every time I land at a company, is just set up a ton of one-on-one meetings and just learn from people.
I also heard you say you really need to find a way to, you're motivating the group clearly, right? That's one of the biggest things. So is there some very clear incentive structures you put together to kind of achieve what you're going for and motivating the people to nail those metrics and things that will move the needle in the company?
Yeah, well, absolutely, Chad. This is a topic that I believe a lot of companies get wrong, and I believe a lot of leaders get it wrong. It is pretty common amongst senior leadership, it's a CFO mindset, kind of finance mindset, that you tied people's financial upside to big metrics of the company, revenue growth or earnings growth or whatever the budget is that year. But the problem with that is that somebody at a more tactical level in the organization, at a manager level or at an execution level, feels like they're far removed from those goals, because they think whether I do a great job or I do a poor job, it's not going to affect the earnings of the company. And in compensation theory, that's called line of sight. So if a company says, hey, the bonus pool is funded by our earnings, our performance against budget, and if we don't hit our earnings budget, then nobody gets a bonus. People sit around and think, well, I can't affect that. Like I'm working on this really small thing. I'm not going to affect the earnings of the company. And then you've lost the opportunity to motivate people and make them feel relevant. So it's very important to me that when you institute bonus structures or KPIs that are tied, that financial upside is tied to, whether it's equity earn-in or bonuses, commissions, or whatever, that a company really think about what is important to the company, and what do we need this specific employee to do? Like, what's the definition of kicking ass for that person? If that person does a great job, we want to make sure that we're measuring their individual performance and giving them the ability to earn financial upside. And it may be far removed from earnings or revenue growth, but then that person feels like they have control over what they're tied to. And that's motivating to people, right? To know that if I do a really good job, I can earn a bonus because I'm doing the job that was defined here. So yeah, and in compensation theory, it's called line of sight, but I really believe that for financial upside, that's a really important element of it. People to know clearly what is expected of them, and provide stretch goals and make sure that they feel like they have a lot of control over whether they hit those goals.
In addition to the financial incentive, right, of, all right, here's a clear path and here's a bonus. Have you found there's anything else, not non-financial, that is a good motivator?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I believe in sharing KPI metrics across functions so that everybody can see what other people's goals are. Now, you don't want to share compensation information, like how much financial upside they have. But if I'm in sales, I want to know what marketing is focused on, what their KPIs are. If you're in marketing, you want to know what operations are focused on. So across functions and groups of the company, I believe in real openness and collaboration around goals and KPIs.
So other than people, right? And that's clearly a massive component of when you come in and scale these businesses. Is there something else that you would say is close to as valuable?
Yeah. Organizational structure and cost structure is very related to people, but it's important, because before you kind of get the team, the right people doing the right things, you need to make sure you have the right org structure, and it's not too thin and it's not too fat. right? Because coming into companies, a lot of times you're trying to right size, you're trying to, get expenses down and so forth. So when I come into a company, I make sure I learn the business as well as I can in the first couple of months. And I'm never going to know the business as well as the people who are in it every day. But you need to know a business well enough to make whatever organizational structure changes need to be made, right? Sometimes there are too many layers and it needs to be flattened out. Sometimes there are people in jobs that shouldn't exist. So there's often a cleanup period, and sometimes there's a reduction in force or changes in the number of employees. But once you kind of make those changes, I like doing it all at once. And that way, everyone you make sure that the people who are A players and are a great cultural fit and collaborative and nice, kind people to work with, make sure those people are taken care of and are rewarded for being that. And then anyone who doesn't fit into that, sometimes it needs to be cleaned up. And that simple act of narrowing down to the top players in an organization, performance-wise, but also culturally, is actually motivating for people, because even though some people might get let go in a situation like that, if you're letting go the people that were dead wood or not a good cultural fit or not kind, friendly people to work with, it actually motivates others because then they're not carrying the weight.
If any of our listeners have a gym and they want to use Gym Launch to help scale, or on the other side of things, a more qualified talent to come in and help with the organization, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, our Instagram is the easy way to do it, or the website. We've got, a sales funnel. So if you just click that you're interested, someone will get in touch with you. But Gym Launch has a really impressive history. We have helped, since Alex Hormozi started the business 10 years ago, Gym Launch has helped about 7,000 gyms in 30 countries to grow and make more money. And that's really what we do. Like, gym owners owning a gym is a tough business. You're doing everything from personal training to selling to hiring staff to cleaning the toilet if someone doesn't show up. It can be a really tough business. So we provide support, we provide coaching, we bring our experience helping a whole bunch of gyms in the past, and help with sales, help with retention, help with conversion, help with marketing. We have an in-house marketing agency. So we run ads for hundreds of gyms at any given time to get leads coming in the door. And we're really good at it. We've done it for over 7,000 gyms over time. So yeah, it's easy to get in touch with through social or through the website. And, we're happy to talk. It's a low pressure situation. We'll explain what we do and how we do it and how we help gyms. And we'd love to work with gym owners.
Well, thank you, Brian, for coming on. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Failing to Success. You guys know, if you want to subscribe, I love it. If not,